guest tonight, who I'm sure everybody is eager to see. He has not only finished the Dakar twice, but has also turned out some impressive times as a privateer, finishing both times in the top 10. After an amazing show in this year's Rally of Rallies, and finishing 5th overall in bikes, which is friggin' amazing, everyone please welcome Skyler Howes. That's right. Big old laugh track. Double it. Just so because they can't get enough. That's all right.
Boy.
So, hey, how's it going, guys?
Good.
Hi. Good.
Awesome. Skyler, nice to finally meet you here, if not virtually. Hopefully we have
Yeah.
a
Nice
chance
to
to
meet you
meet up
too.
sometime over there on the West Coast. And of course, everyone knows Justin and Kyra. They have been co-managing editors for ADVMoto. How long has it been? But is it quite a year?
Almost. Yeah, almost. I think in April or May.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, April, May. All right. Well, what a lot of people might not realize is that in the motorcycle world, lots of people do lots of things. So they also do the co-managing editor work with us, but at the same time they also have their own thing, West by 1000, and man, they are some of the most rally photographing couples I know, probably in the U.S. I know there's a lot of crazy Europeans that love to do this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Stuff, and some South Americans too as well. But out of the U.S. I don't know if there's anyone that's covered as many international rallies as you guys. I mean, is there?
Maybe not lately.
Maybe not lately.
Yeah, not in the last few years
Yeah.
for sure. But
There's definitely people who are enthusiasts, and there's this year I feel like I saw more American journalists than ever before, even if that's like 2 others besides us. But I'd say we're growing.
Well, that's cool. That's a topic I would like to touch on a little bit later. So, if you guys could give, I mean, we've already had kind of a bit of a general introduction, but Skyler, man, could you just give us a little bit of background on who you are, what you do, how you got into this in the first place?
Yeah, I don't know, consider myself kind of just a kid that grew up in Utah and rode dirt bikes pretty much my whole life. My dad got me on a bike when I was just 2 years old, as soon as I could ride a bike without training wheels, and we always just did it for fun. But when Fast Company Flex Handlebars moved into St. George, they talked me into racing the Nationals, the Hare and Hounds. That got me hooked up with Chris Blaze. Chris was, until just recently, the last American to finish on the podium at Dakar, so I got to hear a lot of his stories. While I was racing on his team, we would always pit next to Factory KTM with Kurt Castelli, and that's right when he started his rally deal. So, yeah, I got to be kind of right in the middle of it, right in the mix of 2 of the best racers America has seen as far as rally goes. It really got me fired up, and later on, Ricky Brabeck got introduced, and at the time, me and Ricky were battling it out in the Hare and Hounds and other racing. So when he started going, I was like, man, this is actually something that's really possible. And then fast forward a few more years, I got hooked up with Garrett Pouchet, who at the time was, super into rally, and kind of made an agreement with him, like, hey, look, I'd love to ride for you as a team if you'd be interested in showing me the ropes with rally. And he got me interested, or I guess set up with everything. I went and did Sonora Rally. That was my very first ever rally, and only I think my second time looking at a road book. I was able to win that, which gave me the free entry fee. That gave me the Dakar Challenge win and the free entry fee for 2019 in Peru. That was my first Dakar, which was a learning experience to say the least. But fast forward to last year, finishing in the top 10, and now this year finishing in the top 5. It's kind of been a fast track process into the rally racing thing, but it's something that I think I've been waiting for my whole life, this style of racing, and man, I'm just having a blast with it.
So what, draws you to international rally versus some of the other types of, course-based racing that we have in the U.S.?
I think it's like the most raw form of racing that there is. In just desert racing, you don't get to know the course, but everything's marked by ribbon and arrows. And chances are, if you're from the area, you've ridden all those trails before, you know generally what to expect. And there's a lot of rivalry and everyone's kind of out to get each other and whatnot. So and in Baja too, you're allowed to pre-run the course, so you know what's coming up. Everyone goes down there and creates their little beelines, does their homework. So it's not really, true raw racing. Every aspect comes down to like, okay, who's putting in the homework here? Who's doing this here? In rally, you get the road book the morning of. You don't get a chance to look at it anymore, and you've never ridden those trails before. And everyone's out there more or less on the same playing field. Like, yeah, for sure, people have factory support, this and that, whatnot. But for the most part, everyone is on the same playing field and on the same level. So it's not about how fast you are. There's so much other aspects to it. You have to be cool, calm, and collected. You have to be fast on the bike. You have to be able to navigate, recover from your mistakes, and then do that for 500 miles a day, every day for 2 weeks. So there's so much more to it. Plus, we get to see some pretty incredible places. I mean, Saudi is an amazing place, and I've been lucky enough to go kind of around the world and race in a bunch of different places. So I think it's the complete package when it comes to off-road racing.
That's interesting. So how would you compare, South America to Saudi Arabia?
There's one thing that South America has that's I don't think can be topped, and if it can, it's going to be extremely difficult, and that's the fans. The people down in South America are die-hard, incredibly dedicated fans. I mean, it's pretty insane to see that many people that are stoked about dirt bikes. I mean, we'd be riding through some crazy little town in Peru, and like a old lady that can't even stand up gets like lifted up by her friends and is like jumping around to wave hi at us as we come by. It's like,
that's awesome.
It's insane. Yeah, there's like 200,000 people there at the start podium, and everyone's trying to grab you and take selfies, and it's just chaos. I mean, it's insane. And in Saudi, it's not as popular, so we get some fans out there, but it's like the very first year in Saudi, we showed up. In Peru, you got 200,000 people just cheering and shouting. Everything's going crazy. You go to Saudi, and there's like 12 people there that are like, so it's
half of them are picking their noses.
Yeah,
I'm not picking my nose. It's just an itch.
Yeah, so it's definitely a different atmosphere in Saudi just because not as many people know about it. But like I said, the people in South America are just incredibly dedicated and really supportive fans. So that's something that I miss about South America. But the terrain in Saudi Arabia, I love it. And the landscapes and everything that we got racing there. I like racing in Saudi Arabia because it's very similar to where I'm from. I like the high speeds. I like the rocks. I like the sand. And the way the dunes work in Saudi is a little bit more predictable. They can kind of flow, and it's a lot of fun. And there's a lot of cool stuff to look at. So, which, is kind of nice when you're racing through a country. It's pretty cool to kind of sit back and be like, wow, this is pretty awesome. So Saudi, I think I like the racing in Saudi better, but yeah, South America, I miss the fans for sure.
Well, right. I mean, yeah. I mean, it sounds like when you got 200,000 people there for a launch, man. I mean, that kind of love and energy. I mean, it's got to impact the overall experience, probably even the racing itself. Yeah. Like when you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're going through small towns or these villages or whatever, and if they have that energy, I could only imagine that would transfer to the to the people that are contending in it. Right,
for sure. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like in Peru, I wasn't able to finish. I dislocated my shoulder on the liaison. And when that happened, it happened right in front of a group of people. People picked me up, got me, all brushed off, made sure I was okay. And the whole time, this like little teenage girl was filming it and somehow found me on social media and like sent me the video of me taking off after her family had just picked me up and picked up all the parts off the ground and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, how? We're in the middle of nowhere. It looks like you guys barely have, electricity, and yet you found me on social media somehow to send me this video. They're wild. It's super cool.
Well, that's awesome, man. And that is full experience racing right there.
Yeah.
Not just the racing itself and the time it takes and all the organizing, but when you interact with your audience, that's a totally different level. And lots of rally racing is awesome like that. Even the cars too, like WRC. Everybody's out there, turning cars back over, pulling them off of cliffs and berms and stuff. It's fantastic. So, Kyra and Justin, how did you guys get interested in covering rally racing?
Oh man, we got a phone call from a guy named Ned Cease.
In 2015.
2015. Ned called and asked if we would like to go to the Sardinia Rally and cover his experience there for Cycle World, and we said yes. And really, I mean, I was familiar with Dakar. I'd been familiar with it for a long time, but I didn't realize how many other rally races there were going on around the world as part of the FIM championship. And so we went, and arguably the Sardinia Rally is like a pretty posh. It was a pretty posh.
It was very intimate. Compared to the Dakar Rally, I mean, Skyler, you might have experienced this in some of the Morocco rallies, but it's like you're rubbing shoulders with Mark Coma, and you're where it would be like 500 participants at Dakar, it's like 50 participants.
Yeah.
And so it was a different scale, and maybe it kind of spoiled us because it was, we're eating Italian food every day. We're on a beautiful island. We're really close to like superstar athletes. But it I'd say that was the launching point, and that's where it got us hooked. And so we've been chasing it pretty much ever since.
Right on. And you guys have been doing top's job of it, So, all right, Skyler, have you been in any other rallies and stuff besides Dakar? I know that you had sort of mentioned a couple of them, but are there any of them that are kind of your favorites?
Yeah, the Sonora Rally every year is definitely my favorite. It's my first ever rally, but it's kind of like how Kyra just said that they get spoiled. Like Sonora Rally, I think is the funnest terrain to race on. Their dunes there are huge, but they flow really good and they're really fun to ride. And then when we kind of run down the beach, we'll have these beach sections where we're right on the water for a while, and then they move us off and we go through these big twisty sandy trails in between the giant cactuses, and it's so sick. And then every single bivouac is like right on the beach or somewhere super awesome. We have local catering or just eating delicious, ceviche and tacos, and it's just so awesome. It almost doesn't feel like a race. And then everyone there is super cool too. Like my very first race I did there, Garrett, who was showing me the ropes, he had a mechanical failure. So the rest of the race I was racing against Scotty Bright, who's a legend, and he more or less coached me the whole time while we're racing, because I would be able to ride a section maybe faster and get out ahead, and then I'd make a navigation mistake, and he'd come up and he'd stop and he'd like point it out. Okay, this is why you made this. We're in the middle of the race, and he's like coaching me on how to navigate better.
Wow.
So it was really fun. I mean, we're all competitors, and we're all out there trying to win, but that's another reason why I love the sport of rallies, because everyone's actually, friends. Everyone likes having a good time together. So Sonora Rally, I pretty much try to do every single year. I did the Baja Rally, which is fun. And then in 2019, I got super fortunate enough to kind of travel around and do a handful of other rallies. So I did the Morocco Desert Challenge. I was able to win that. That was my first world event that I ever won. And I competed directly against Joan Pedrero, who's insane. I mean, I think he was joking, but I don't think he's actually joking. We were at the finish line of Saudi this year, and I was like, how many Dakars have you done? Something like 15? And he's like, no, I think it's 14. And I think he's actually done 14 Dakars or something. It's insane. Yeah. But same kind of thing too. Like he would help me out. We would make mistakes together. I learned the pace and just, that was super awesome. And then I went to Greece. Greece is one of my favorite countries. The food there is amazing. It's one of my favorite parts of traveling is eating food. I just love food. But unfortunately, I don't know what happened. I was pushing pretty hard because I was racing against Stefan Svitko, who's a total, I mean, he's a gangster. So I was pretty confident on one day that I was going to make up a ton of time, and it was towards the end of the rally where it was going to be deciding on whether who's going to win or not. And I was just, I wasn't really like going over my head, but that year a ton of rain had happened, so I actually swung it wide and fell into a big rain rut and broke my neck. And that was 3 months before Dakar 2020. So that was the last world event that I got to do other than, Saudi and Sonora and that kind of stuff. So 2019 was a, super big year. I got to go to a lot of different places and whatnot. So far, Saudi has to be one of my favorite places to race. Sonora is my favorite race. Greece is like my favorite place to visit and ride. The riding there is pretty sick, but mostly because the food is super good. So, I've been pretty fortunate to be able to ride my dirt bike in a few different countries. Pretty cool.
Well, that's awesome. Now, how about the race that goes on the same time as Dakar? And I guess they claim it covers the old route, the Africa Eco race.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever plan to contend in that? I know that there would be a time conflict, or is that kind of not something that you'd be interested in? Is there a difference between the two? What are the main differences?
I don't know. I think I'm always down to race no matter what. I'd be down to go race whatever you could throw at me. I just like riding my dirt bike more or less. But I think, especially the time conflict, and then I don't know, the old, I got to ride it a little bit just in Morocco. The old Dakar course is a lot of high speed stuff. And it goes through some pretty desolate areas, and especially from the stories that I heard from Chris and, just that kind of racing down there is pretty intense because you're just out there on your own. So I would love that aspect of like the adventure and just being out there on your own. You have to finish, you need to keep it out there on two wheels. I'm definitely down to race it, but I think at this point right now, it would be something that I would for sure have to do way later on in my life and career, just because of the conflict with everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, it looks super fun, and especially to race the old course. The biggest thing I'm sketched about in Africa is like the food and water. I mean, like I said, my favorite part of traveling is the food, and when you can't eat it because you're scared of getting sick, it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, that is crazy. But I mean, the whole history of those men and women both doing Dakar. I mean, I can remember back. It was like, was it 07 when they canceled it?
Like 08.
Was
8, and then they.
It was 08. It was 08.
10 years
Like, I know
in South America.
Yeah, like I know it was a while ago, but I just remember seeing the video footage of all these guys lined up with, and it looked like they were on the boat. I mean, it looked like they had gotten all their gear together, and they were all lined up and they were ready to sail, and then it was just like, no, we're not going, and these guys are just breaking down. I mean, it was just like but do you think back to the like the 20 years before that or something? These guys were getting shot at, hitting landmines. I mean, you guys with the dudes with SKSs out hiding out behind rocks and stuff. I mean, it was just some tremendous. I mean, just absolutely mind-blowing stuff. I mean, I can definitely see why it would say, well, this is pushing the risk over the top. But actually, at the same time, though, right? There was a lot of people this year. They were like, "What's up with the tire rule?" You know what I mean? Like with all the crashes and stuff like that, some people were kind of speculating, in the public, of course, we all know everything over here, right? But, they were speculating that some of the injuries and stuff, could have been avoided if the tire rule hadn't been so strict, especially, like Toby Price and his kind of mythological zip tie fix. I mean, what's your take on that?
What do you guys think? What do you guys think as journalists about this? I want to hear your ideas first.
Personally, I think, it's part of a race's agenda or an organization's agenda to change rules or to modify them to both add safety and challenge. And the balance is very difficult. And, you know, you're trying something new every year, and maybe it's not the best solution for that year. But I understand what they were attempting to do with reducing the tire changes, and that was to slow the racers down. Part of Dakar isn't just, you know, going on the pipe full speed to the end. You have to manage your tires, you have to manage your bike, you have to manage your body. And their intention was to force the riders to be a little bit more conservative about how fast they're riding in certain areas. So because they have to maintain the integrity of their rear tire. Whether that worked for everyone or not, I mean, you can't help that. I can't imagine. I don't know what, you know, Skyler would know better than I would, but I can imagine being on the race course, and it's really hard to not want to go full speed, go, you know, give it your all when you have the opportunity. And maybe the opportunity presents itself more often than not, and that can mean that you wear your tires down faster.
So hear me out. That strategy there where you say, I could go fast, but I need to save your tires. That didn't happen. We just all pinned it. None of us, I don't think, out there really cared about how wore out our tires got. I mean, to an aspect, I think maybe if we're going through super gravelly stuff, we weren't just lit the whole time. But yeah, pretty much every day we just rode, and at the end of the day, we're like, well, that tire's smoked. Only got one day out of that. Looks like we gotta. I don't know. Like Kyra said too. I think, yeah, we understand what they were trying to do. They're trying to make every day similar to a marathon stage. So you have to at least try to get 2 days out of the same tire. The problem is, and I've seen a video of me going through this, you know, just rock garden. It's like, okay, you need to make this tire last 2 days. And then here they proceed to run us through 200 miles straight of nothing but rocks. There wasn't even dirt out there. It was only rocks.
Shredding.
It's not regular.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like
shredding.
rock and like gnarly, crazy, sharp stuff. Like, yeah, there's only so much maintenance you can do through that.
Yeah.
It's almost like volcanic rock or something, that real sharp.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, we like to joke that the ASO likes to make every single aspect of Dakar as difficult as possible. Whether you're media or the riders, just like making you walk half a mile just to go pee, like anything, like just to add the challenge to the mystique of the race.
Yeah, finding your lunch bag is
Part of the challenge.
Is an obstacle course.
Yeah, living off of Biscoff cookies for 2 days.
Oreos.
Or
Oreos.
2.5 hours of sleep. Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we all saw Justin's famous Oreo Bandit video.
Oh, yeah.
Where he got dangerous with a banana. That was awesome.
We're trying to make this brought to you by Oreo here. Any minute.
Dropping some free plugs. But so then what'd you say, Skyler, man? You know, that like, you know, that maybe they should have taken more of the course and the terrain into account when they decided on the numbers, or do you think there was just someone that was making rules, and then there was someone that was, you know, kind of charting the routes, and they weren't really coordinating or thinking about the impact on them together? Or
I don't think they really put that much thought into it. I think they probably came down to like, all right, look, they can make one tire last for 2 days over the marathon stage. Why couldn't you do that for the whole race? And on paper, everyone goes slower during the marathon stage to conserve themselves, but there's a video of Sam Sunderland saying it perfectly. If you went slow enough to conserve your bike and your tires, you would be hours behind. Like, you can't. You just you have to race. So I see on paper how it would look good, but we're racing. Like, you know, you can't expect us to go out there and be like, yeah, you know what? I could be going 100 miles an hour right now, but maybe I'm going to go 40 to just conserve my bike. We're not going to do that. It's not going to happen. Like, we're out there trying to win. So I think what's important is I like a tire rule. So, and everything that I'm saying too, if I was in the factory's position, I'd love it. So don't get me wrong that I'm like bashing on these guys, because if I had motorhomes to sleep in on the marathon stage and unlimited tires and just all that kind of stuff, I'd be stoked. So don't take that the wrong way. However, as coming from a privateer and knowing like the struggle side of it, Last year there was no tire rule, so we'd go, your bike gets fully prepped at the end of the day. You start the morning the next day at 4 a.m., whatever. You ride your liaison for 3.5 hours. You get less than a kilometer from the start of the special, and then you have a factory sprinter van waiting for you that does a full, complete service on your bike. And all you've done is just ride that down the highway. So you get to sit in the van, drink hot coffee or tea or whatever, get warmed back up while your bike gets fully prepped with brand new tires. You start the special with fresh tires, and then you have a neutralization halfway through that's a service point also. So another factory sprinter van is sitting right there, ready to do another full, complete service on your bike. You get new tires halfway through the stage, and then you go to the end of the stage and go back to the bivouac. So at the end of the day, you just went through 3 tires for one day, which last year we're sitting at a neutralization. Every bike just comes rolling through and they all got fresh tires. I'm on roached tires. I'm like, man, this is awesome. Sitting here trying to battle them through the top 10. All these guys just showed up on fresh, fully serviced bikes. I'm like,
oh,
okay.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So it's an unfair kind of like advantage if you have that extra support, right?
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm saying. If I had that support, I'd be pumped. I'd be super stoked to have fresh tires. But coming from the privateer side and not getting that same treatment, I can understand the difference in like, okay, this isn't really fair to some people. And that's like earlier what I was saying, how everyone's on the same playing field. I think that's what they're trying to make it more of a less of advantage to be a factory rider. I mean, obviously you're going to have huge advantages with just money and the amount of parts that you have. It's a huge advantage to be a factory racer in the beginning, but what they're trying to do is just put everyone else, so the little guy has more of a chance. And it's making it more possible to go out there and it keeps the racing interesting. I mean, the racing was super interesting this year and I was racing. I mean, it was really, really fun for me to kind of get mixed up, and there was so much different stuff and happening. All these riders are going from first place to 21st place, and just there's so many things happening. And I got a lot of messages saying that it was really, really, really fun to watch this year because the racing was a lot more interesting. So, I mean, the tire rule I think is a good idea, but I think they need to bump it up to 11. So you have to finish the day with whatever tire you started on, and then you have to make one tire last for the marathon stage. And I think that's fair, and I think that's safer, because with the dangerous part, for Toby's aspect, there's 2 ways of looking at it. If you have a tire that's about to fail like that, and then he has to ride almost an entire day on a rim, that's incredibly unsafe. But that's the marathon stage, so that didn't really matter. It didn't matter about the tire rule in that. I mean, he was going to be stuck with that tire no matter what. Even if you could have had unlimited tires, he was stuck with that tire. So it really didn't make a difference, the tire rule, because that happened on the marathon stage. If it happened, say, shoot, my earpod fell out. If it happened on, say, day like 10, and then he was out of tires and he was forced to run that same tire on stage 11, that would have been incredibly unsafe, because he had the opportunity to put a new tire on, but he was out of it or whatever. So there's an unsafe way of looking at it, because, in my aspect, running a bald tire down a gravel dirt road in a rocky area, you can't stop. We're sitting there going, 140 kilometers an hour down a dirt road, and then you start braking for a corner expecting the bike to hook up, and then you just keep sliding, and you just slide off the road. That's super unsafe. And if we have fresh tires that we're allowed to have every day, at least just one new tire per day, it's more of a chance for us to be able to stop and accelerate and control the bike better. So I think it's safer to have, I think it's a good rule to have a tire rule, but make it 11 tires. And then you just have to finish the stage on whatever tire you start on, because what they're doing now is eliminating the water boy. So in the past, you used to have someone who would intentionally ride slower than the main guy. If the main guy had problems, that slower rider would come up, give the faster rider whatever parts they needed, so that faster rider had a better shot to win. And now you can't do that. All of your parts are marked to your bike. You could essentially stop and swap like a clutch lever or something like that. But, you know, wheels, any major part of the motorcycle that could really be a deciding factor in your finish, you can't swap them anymore, which is, you know, kind of cool. It brings more of that, like, all right, no matter who you are, you have to make sure you and your machine finish with your own parts. So that's cool. And I think a tire rule is necessary just because it puts, it's the same as the road book deal now. Everyone gets the road book 20 minutes before the stage starts. Everyone has to do, you know, you have to finish the stage on the tire you started on. So I think that's important, but the 6-tire rule I think was not safe.
Yeah, it seems like it was pushing. We also have a question from the audience, and that was another thing this year was the mandatory airbags. What did you think about those? I mean,
I think that airbags are probably a necessary deal, especially because a lot of us choose not to or can't wear neck braces, and just because it really prohibits movement, and movement is very important on a motorcycle. So the airbag actually has like a neck roll that it pops up and has like a type of neck brace that is basically not there until you crash. So I think the airbag is necessary, but it was kind of annoying, just because every time that mine went off, it was in in an area that I really didn't want it to go off. So and it just made the situation more difficult. Like I literally would just tip over in the sand and it would, and I'm like, oh geez, trying to pick up my bike or whatever. So, and the one that I was specifically wearing was really heavy, and it didn't breathe well. So I got really hot. It was a lot of weight on my body, and hopefully they can work out I don't know how they're going to work out the algorithm to determine on whether or not
like impact or whatever.
Yeah, because literally every time I'd just be like, "Oop, tip over." I'm like, "Oh, dang it!" Every time.
Did you have to like poke a hole in it? Or
how do you deflate it?
What do you do?
It deflates automatically, but it takes like 3 minutes. So I'm sitting there trying to ride like this, can't really move.
That took time off your days, but you could have been third place.
It went off three times total. One of them was the last day, and I was panicking on the last day too. So it was a little hectic at some times.
So short. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I missed the waypoint at the very beginning of the stage, so I was pushing harder than I've ever pushed before, and just literally the easiest little thing. I came around a corner, and it was a really sharp corner, and I just like high-sided. So I was going super, super slow, and I just kind of went and landed on my shoulder, and I was like, and like the second I came off the bike, and I'm like, effing airbag, don't do it. Hit the ground. I'm like, no, airbag.
It reminds me of that kid. Have you seen, is it Christmas Story? Ralphie?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
outfit?
Exactly.
That's how I picture you.
That's exactly how it feels.
Yeah, that's crazy stuff. So to get all of the Dakar kind of gossip, talk out of the way, what do you think was going on with that? The fuel gate. Yamaha didn't have a very good year this year. I guess they lost one or two of the bikes because of water in the gas. I mean, and to me, like when I saw that, and the dude held up a picture of the gas that was drained out of the bike, and you could see that there was a certain amount of straight up water in there.
There's 3
I was like,
liters.
I was like, how does that happen? I mean, I would think one of the things that would be pretty strictly controlled, out there would be the gas.
Well, one thing that was different this year, Saudi gets 7 days of rain a year, and we got 3 or 4 of them. There was a lot of moisture, and even if it wasn't fully raining, it would be super foggy. So there was just a lot of moisture in Saudi Arabia this year that I think they normally don't plan for.
That's a lot.
So, I mean, it is a lot, and what they ended up doing is they had like a bucket there that they would intentionally just fill up before every rider would come, and then every single rider had to use the same pump because of that issue. And unfortunately, it had to be Andrew Short. I mean, Toby had the same issue. I had water in my fuel every single day. My mechanic would pull the tank off, and I have foam in my tank, and he would wring that foam out, and there'd be at least like 2 or 3 ounces of water in that foam every day. And I got lucky enough that the only time I actually had a problem with it was on the liaison. So I was able to stop and drain the water out of my fuel on the liaison and make it in. So it really wasn't a huge deal for me. But someone like Andrew, who, it's the first time this has ever happened, so he doesn't really know what the issue is to begin with. Even if he did know, it was enough fuel that he probably would have ran out of gas.
Yeah.
Or there was enough water in there taking up all that space. So it was like, dude, it's a huge problem, and it sucks so bad that, that Andrew had to go out that way. But I mean, seeing how everything else kind of played out, maybe it's kind of the less of a gut punch to make it only a couple of days and have to go out with water in your fuel, and then like someone like Adrian who makes it to literally the last stage and isn't able to finish. So it's kind of a bummer deal there.
Yeah, and I think last year Andrew's bike had a mechanical problem, right? The engine, was that it in 2020?
No, Andrew just had like
Yamaha.
No, Andrew last year was on Husqvarna.
Oh, yeah. That's right. He changed over this year. That's right.
Right.
So, I mean, that kind of begs a question, and I don't know if there's anything too top secret here, but, you've had some really strong finishes. Are there any chances of, what I'm saying, going factory team, what I'm saying, getting some orange or blue and white there, what I'm saying?
Listen, all I can say is I really have my hopes high that I have a piece of paper on my desk that I can sign, but I don't have any information to share for you at this moment.
That's cool, man. Well, of course, we wish you all the best for that because, really watching you race was absolutely fantastic. Although, to be honest, everybody out there is a friggin' hero to me personally. You know what I mean? Like especially like the Malimotos.
Yeah, those dudes are gnarly. And
Kyra, like we had changed, like swapped message about is there anything we can do for some of the Malimoto, racers to give them a little bit of spotlight. I don't, whether it was just like a photo montage or collage in the book or something like that. But I mean, their stories just sound so frigging incredible, man. I mean, they're like, are they beasts of motorcycling? You know what I mean, or what? You know what I mean?
I mean, they're masochists.
Yeah.
They're people who like to feel pain every day. I mean, there's a story, a friend of ours who is also in the Malimoto class. Even his story is interesting. He crashed out and he ended up coming back in the experienced class. And still, after going to the hospital and getting cleared, he came back and finished the race. And he said there's this one guy, and I think his nickname is like Red Lantern or something of that nature, because he always came back at night. And he's been racing rallies for a long time, I guess. And he knows he's a slow guy. He knows that he's not like the most skilled, talented rider, but he puts himself through this hell like anyway. Our friend said that he saw him one day like sitting in the lunchroom with his head down in like a rag or a towel, just sobbing. And it was probably a few days till the end. And he said that he was just so exhausted and so tired and worried about the next few days, because from our friend's point of view, he said everyone else in that class, no matter how hard the day was, every day they know that the next day they might make it back while the sun's out, and they might make it back with good time. There's a chance. And this guy knows that every single day he will always make it back at night. He'll always get less sleep than everyone else. He'll always have to do work on his bike, and it's pain. And to like willingly continue to do that, even though you're gonna like life is gonna suck every day, it's extremely I would think very tasking, very daunting.
What do you think about that, Skyler?
He's like, nope, factory, please.
Yeah. I'll take a motorhome over a tent.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll let me race Malimoto because I'm an elite racer. So they won't actually let me do it now. Oh no.
Shoot.
Yeah. No, there was a guy. So the Boss Dakar team that I was on, they rent their bikes out also. And guy, he came from Botswana, and his story is actually, I think, the craziest one because he was pretty much dead last every day. He was last place, and honestly, I mean, James, if you're watching this, when you first showed up and we're talking about it and we're going over everything, we're like, man, if he makes it to rest day, we're going to be super impressed. Well, he not only made it to rest day, but he finished the race, and he rode, so our total racing time was, somewhere around 50 hours. His total racing time was 133 hours.
Sam.
Yeah. Stages that took us 4 hours to finish, it took him 17 hours to finish. It was
wow.
insane. And there was a couple days, there was one day specifically that
wow.
It was dark, and the whole finish of the stage was in the dunes, big dunes too. And he had to ride all of these dunes in the dark, which is super, super sketchy because you can't actually see when the dune drops off. You can only see when you're going up into just blackness. And so he's trying to ride all these dunes at night. He's out of water. He's sweating like crazy because he's working so hard. He said he crashed so many times that he finally said, all right, if I crash one more time, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to stop here. And then he would crash again. He'd pick up. He's like, all right, the next time I crash, I'm done. And then he'd crash again. And then he'd just keep doing that. And then he came upon this camp. It's like these guys out there just spectating, and the local guys that had set out their rugs and they were having tea. And he rolled up, and he's freezing cold because he's sweating so much. And so he stops, he's getting warmed up, and he's out of water, so they're offering him stuff. And he drinks 8 cups of chai. And I think if you drink just 1 cup of chai, you'll be up for about 5 days. And he drank 8 cups. And finally, the guys were almost trying to force him to stay there. Like, look, man, you shouldn't go back out. He's like, no, I have to finish. Like there's no other option. I have to finish. I have to continue. Dang. So he got back up and he finished the stage. And then when he came in that night, he had hypothermia because of all the sweat. And then he was on the liaison. And so they forced him to sleep in the medical tent so he could warm up. And he was, shaking uncontrollably. So he slept in the medical tent, woke up the next morning, started the next stage. And then he finished that stage in the dark. It turned out the finish of that special was actually the start of the next one. So he just finished that one and slept there at the finish of that special, woke up the next morning, refilled his bike, and started the next one. Like, it's insane the amount of stories that he has. He's like, oh yeah, it was incredible. And he came into the finish, held up his medal, and we're like, dude, this is more inspiring than anything I've ever seen. The fact this dude made it to the finish line is incredible, and he was so stoked on it. And he did it Malimoto. So yeah. I mean, he's coming in after 17 hours of racing a stage and roughly 20 hours on the bike or something, and then has to work on his bike, gets an hour and a half of sleep, gets up the next morning, and has to start the stage. Like, dude.
Wow.
Can't even fathom it.
As far as I'm concerned, that's his race.
Yeah, for real.
You know what I mean? Like whoever should get the trophy is the dude who has to work the hardest to finish. Yeah. Or there should be a special award for that. Is there a special award for that? Like, like a guy or a girl they just muscle the shit out, and you're like, we don't even believe you're here, and here's an award for that. You know what I mean?
Your finisher's medal. That's it.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I mean, the Dakar doesn't award you if you do poorly. Like they
don't even really award you if you do well.
They don't award you.
You get the same medal. They're just here's your medal. Here you go.
But like,
you get a big trophy.
Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out.
But like the work that you do, they punish you for it. Like if you're not like proficient, they make sure you know it, and then they just like kick you while you're down.
Yeah, that guy had to walk 20 minutes to go pee every day. That's the.
He peed in his pants. There's no way to go. Why like he's like pee in pants, eat a granola bar, stare into space for about 5 seconds, and then go back on the bike and ride again.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, you hear stories like that, and it's almost crazier than fiction. That people actually have that much endurance and and kind of like dedication, and it's not just a physical thing too. It's largely kind of like like emotional, and some of the scenes that touched me the most were unfortunately some of the most tragic, and that was where people had passed away. And to me, that's one of the big you hear about people getting into accidents in Formula One, and stuff like that, and all those are tragic. Like whenever anyone passes, it's tragic. There's the only consolation I think we have as fans of the sport is that they pass doing what they love. You know what I mean? So I did kind of scrounge up a small video here. This is a short video from 2020 of Paulo Gonçalves, and there's old Skyler there. He's feeling it, but it's not just Skyler. There's a bunch of guys that are really feeling this. The loss of. I don't know, Skyler. What would you say? I mean, do you guys kind of see yourselves as comrades, as brothers? What is kind of going through everybody's head right here when something like this happens?
Well, that was especially difficult. I mean, I have dealt with the loss of friends racing, and Kurt Caselli being one of them, and then Paulo. I wasn't necessarily super close with him on a personal level, but we're all friends out there. Like I was saying earlier, you see this year when Toby crashed, Ricky and Sam don't hesitate to stop. It's the same. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what place you're in, what place you have a chance at finishing. You stop for everyone. We're all we got out there. If we don't stop, who's going to? And it could be that split second that could make a difference. And when Paulo crashed, I was the third rider on him. Toby was the first, Stefan, and then myself. And Toby and Stefan had stopped, and when I came up, hey, what can I do to help? And they said, just go. Just don't even stop. Just go. We got it handled. Helicopter's already landing. And it's something that's going to be, burned in my mind forever. I remember it like it was yesterday, and it's something that I won't ever forget because it really hit home the fact that someone like Paulo, who's a legend in the sport, he has finished so many Dakars, and he's done well, and he's won races, and he's, it's someone who's that good, and then someone like Kurt Caselli, who's the best racer in the world, and both of them had things that happened that it wasn't necessarily their fault. It's just something that happened. And there's something that's difficult to understand about that, like why did it happen? And then the other side of it, like, look, these guys are the best in the world. And someone like Kurt, who is the most fit, the most prepared, he does the most amount of homework, and literally is the best at his craft. And then add something that literally is just completely out of the control. It's a weird way of looking at it, but it's almost a sense of like calm that no matter how perfect you are at whatever you do, some things just happen. And there's nothing that you can really do to change that. When it's time to punch your ticket, what do? There's not really a way to prepare for that. If you are if you've done your preparation, you're fit, you're healthy, you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're not taking unnecessary risks. Dirt biking and off-road racing is dangerous inherently. And the organization and whoever, they're all in really difficult positions because they're like, oh, what can we do to make it safer? And it's like, look, you can only do so much before you just wrap us in bubble wrap and then tell us not to go racing because it's too dangerous. We all know what we're signing up for, and there's kind of that. It's hard to put it into words that because it's that dangerous, because that many sketchy things happen every single day, it almost makes the reward when something good happens that much sweeter. We have these these moments out there that every single day we're doing, 160, 170 kilometers an hour, and you clip a little tiny rock and you get kicked sideways and you just have this moment where it's, but you pulled out of it and you never let off. You just keep going. And that happens 1,000 times a day. And sometimes that one time where it just gets out of hand and you can't bring it back, that could be it. And that was what's so difficult, especially about Paulo, was it wasn't an area that where you're like, yep, for sure, this is, yep, that's what did it. It was just something, it was something like that. Like it just got yeah, it's just, and that's that was what was really difficult about it. If you remember like the TV coverage, everyone, and Petter Hansel said it specifically, like, what are we doing out here? If we're pushing this hard for, like Justin said, okay, yeah, it doesn't matter if you win or lose or whatever, everyone gets the same medal. You're not really out there. It's out for your own personal glory at the end of the day. And that's something that's really helped me out mentally wise is, yeah, if I come in and I finish 20th on the day, it is what it is. If I go out there and I start pushing beyond my limits, something bad could happen. And then at the end of the day, what do you get out of that? You're out there for your own personal glory. And if you're having fun and you're enjoying what you're doing and you're racing to the best of your ability, that's what matters. And if you're doing it for any other reason, you shouldn't be doing it. And I think there's a lot of aspect now to professional racing where people put themselves in mentalities and stuff that can really, mess them up and cause injuries, which would cause, problems for everyone else racing. So it's a really, really tough situation to be in, to be like, all right, with Kurt passing away, the way it all happened, the way it led up, it was almost in a weird way saying it like it was supposed to happen. The foundation that they started in his name has created a lot of good things and a lot of changes to make things safer. And, Dakar's, for being such an incredibly dangerous race, is actually really safe. I mean, the response time for emergencies is insanely fast, considering we're in the middle of Saudi Arabia. So, there's only so much you can do. So when you have guys and girls going hundreds of miles an hour out there on their dirt bike, I don't know. Like I said, it's some things just happen, and it's tough to find the mentality to accept that because, for me, I love racing dirt bikes, and I've said it once before that racing dirt bikes and off-road is one of the most selfish things you could possibly do because you understand that, and yet you still choose to go out there and do this. And it's a personal thing. You're not going out there racing with, 6 people strapped to your back. You're out there on your bike alone against the elements, and that anything like this can happen, yet you still choose to go do that. And with everything else that you got going on back home, it's pretty selfish to do, but man, the feeling is something that you can't describe to anyone. To finish an event like this, someone like James, who just raced 133 hours, he raced 70 hours longer than Benavidez, and to be able to finish that and check that off as an accomplishment. I finished the Dakar Rally, and I rode 3 times as long as anyone else. And it was an incredible struggle and things like that. Like, how do you can't even put that into words, what type of feeling he had when he finished. And with me, growing up in a small town and having to dumpster dive for tires and run duct tape numbers and hand-me-down gear, to be able to come to the Dakar Rally on a proper bike, on a proper team, and then finish in the top 5 overall as an elite racer, like, I don't know. I don't know how to describe that feeling to anyone, to show people like, hey, this is why we do it. That this is, it's something that's pretty wild. So yeah, I mean, this year, unfortunately, we had another death with someone in the Moto Mali class. And I think if you look at the statistics, is like every year there's at least one tragedy, and it's so gnarly to see that. But this year, I don't know, it like sometimes crashes just happen. And like Toby, when he was racing, I don't think it had anything specifically to do with anything else other than you're 6 inches too far to the left and you clip a rock. It's happened to me half a dozen different times. It happened to me in the States last September, and I raced for 500 miles, and literally 14 miles from the finish, I was 1 inch too far to the left and clipped a rock and got a concussion. So it's one of those things that you can do everything right. You can do everything right for 8 hours, and then one tiny little thing where you either lose focus or you can't see, and one thing is wrong. Sometimes things just happen. So yeah, it's something that's really tough on all of us and makes you really think about why we're doing this. But like I said, to describe to someone the feeling of the accomplishment and reaching goals, the reaction from Laya this year, she has Lyme's disease, and she finished the Dakar, and it was a really, really gnarly one this year, really tough. She finished it and she did really well, and to see her reaction of that accomplishment is, yeah.
She's 11-4-11, man.
That's incredible.
What an amazing record, man. What an amazing record.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally well. I was really interested when you were talking about, just to rewind for a second, about the idea that this kind of racing is selfish. You know what I mean? And actually, what I found over the past 10, 11 years of putting on ADVMoto is the whole concept of adventure in essence is selfish. Whether you're traveling around the world, or it's your first trip around the United States and it's going to take you a few weeks or a month or something like that, you're leaving something. You know what I mean? A family, friends, something else. They're going to worry about you, all that kind of stuff, but you do it anyway because you have a sense of purpose or kind of mission in your life, that you're looking for a new experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that ties everyone together.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that I think is the heart of adventure. So how does someone know, man? Trying to lighten it up a little bit here. Sorry. So how does someone know if they are, kind of like Dakar material? You know what I mean? Like as a racer. You know what I mean? Like
As an elite racer?
just someone who's going to be like, yo, I want to go into internationally. I want to go into international. Like rally racing. Whether it's in, we're going to start off in, like Sonora or something. I mean, how does someone know that they are the right personality, or they have the right situation, or they've got what it takes to really, want to be a part of something like this?
How do you know unless you try? I would think.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
make sure you can find your way home from the bar at night. That's
If
good
you
way to
can,
start.
if you can read symbols, if you're not blind, and you can technically captain some sort of machine that is allowed in a rally race, you're like 2 steps ahead. I mean, if you look at, I'm sorry, I forgot his name. Is it James? The guy from Botswana. I mean, you can't, if you're racing like literally 3 times as long as everyone else, if you had told, if you had examined that guy before he decided to enter Dakar, maybe if there was some sort of level of qualification, he might not have qualified. But the fact that he just chose to do it, I mean, how can you gauge mental strength when you haven't tested yourself? So mental strength, I think, is the most powerful tool you have in a rally raid versus, for instance, where you need more skill and speed in desert racing or enduro. And so, I mean, I wouldn't know because I haven't raced. So, but I think that I will never know until I go and try something.
Man. Skyler, do you think there's any way for someone to know if they have the fire, or is it really just kind of something you fall into? Or is it something that you could say, you know what, if I hadn't been somewhere at some point in time with this person talking to me or explaining it to me, I never would have done it?
Yeah, I think everyone should experience, if they love racing and off-road racing in general. There's a lot of people that race, on tracks and things that I think they just wouldn't enjoy it. I mean, like Kyra said earlier, you have to be kind of a masochist and just enjoy the struggle and enjoy having just a gnarly thing you have to accomplish, because you have to be able to have the mental capacity to, inevitably you're going to have an issue, mechanical crash, navigation, something's going to happen that you have to figure out. So you have to have the mental capability of, okay, this happened, I need to figure it out without losing your mind. And then, you got to be able to ride or drive something. You have to be able to have a sense of direction. If you go out in your house and you have no idea which way you're pointing, whether it's north, south, east or west, you probably should figure that out before you want to race a rally. You need to be coherent with directions. I think anyone who loves off-road racing or enduro would probably like to do rally. And the thing with North America specifically is it's not really readily available for everyone. So I hope that changes now that we have a lot more Americans, Ricky, myself, Andrew, a lot of people in the side-by-sides getting more involved with it, that changes. So if someone goes, hey, if I'm interested and I want to get the equipment and the road books, how do I start? And that will give everyone a little bit more of an idea of if this is right for me. If they go out there and they go, I don't have it. I couldn't even make it 3 corners in or 3 notes in. Then they figure out that, okay, maybe I need to stick with a GPS route, or I need to stick with this type of racing, or just riding in general. But if they go out there and like, man, this is really fun, I'm clicking with it, then they can do a race like Sonora. And then they can go do a race like, Morocco and get their qualifications done and then go and try Dakar. I mean, Dakar isn't something that you just decide, you know what, I've raced a handful of desert races in my life, I'm going to go race Dakar. It's not, you're in way over your head. You're not even jumping into the pool at that point. You're jumping into the deepest part of the ocean. So it's definitely something, because I even had some experience. I had training and I had 2 races under my belt that I won. And then I went to Dakar in Peru and I was in way over my head. I had no idea what to expect. I thought I had it all under control. And then I started the first stage and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I mean, you definitely have to have some, some training and things. And I think that's what Americans get in trouble with, is they think that, I've had some success over here, I'm going to go to Dakar and I'm going to kill it. I had the same problem, like, I've already won 2 rallies, I'm going to go to Dakar, I'm going to do really well. And not just Americans specifically. A lot of people have the expectation to be like, I've won a bunch of races my day, I'll go to Dakar and I'll do well. And then, Dakar just has a way of just, nope, just slapping you in the face. So,
down.
Yeah. So I mean, Dakar is just, it's an incredible challenge. But to figure out if you have the stuff to be a rally rider or racer, it just takes time. Nobody is going to put a road book in front of your face and you go do it perfectly. Like, there's going to be mistakes that are going to be made. You have to have some type of experience. And, a lot of other people look at the cost, but essentially if you race a desert race, it's going to cost you like, what, a couple $100? Well, if you look at rally and they look at the entry fee, that's thousands of dollars. All right, well, divide that by how many days you're racing. You're essentially doing 6 to 14 desert races in a row. So people have a problem with looking at the cost. Oh man, I don't know if I could do this. But actually, when you subtract everything and work it all out, it's really not that expensive. And for your bang for your buck, I think it's the best type of racing.
Wow, that's awesome. So I mean, on the cost topic, you've really had to hustle to make this happen. I mean, what is someone looking at, in terms of being able to run it? And let's just say the Dakar, not not counting all the other stuff you have to do to build up to it and everything like that. But, you know, like if someone did build up to it and it was time for them to qualify as a privateer, especially, you know, I mean, how do you do that? I mean, how do you get the funds for it, or you got to go knocking on doors, or what?
Well, what you can do that Skyler's actually living. That's actually a cardboard box that he's in.
Yeah.
Because he sold everything he owned so that he could go race Dakar.
He rode his bicycle to the airport and back from Scotland.
So.
Do you have a truck?
Yeah, he's selling it though. I saw it
on.
I saw it already. No, the new truck, the Ford.
Oh.
Yeah. He's just.
Yeah. No, I came back and I celebrated a little prematurely. So I'm doing the hot air balloon thing too. So I kind of like working myself into a different career where I don't have to stand behind a machine every day and just press buttons and whatnot. Anyways, off topic. But
that's cool. That's cool.
More or less, it's kind of weird the way it works out. No matter how you crunch the numbers of doing a privateer motorcycle effort, it always works out to about $100,000. Like, no matter which way you try to do it, unless you're really cutting corners, and that's the biggest thing too, is people really try to budget when they do this, which they shouldn't. I mean, when it's 20 grand just to enter, at that point you should just realize, like, all right, listen, if it's 20 grand just to get here, don't step over dollars to pick up pennies at that point. Spend the money, do the right team, you know, just get the right equipment, replace the parts when it's supposed to, and just do it the right way, because you'll thank yourself in the long run. I've done it on a budget before, and it's tough. And then to do it this year where I was like, all right, listen, I struggled. I had a lot of, you know, issues in the past. This year, I'm just going to spend the money. I'm going to, you know, this is what it's going to cost, and this is what it's going to take to get here. I'm going to sell a crap ton of T-shirts, do a bunch of fundraising, and unfortunately, looks like I'm going to have to sell every single one of my motorcycles. And so that's what it was going to take, and so that's what I did.
That's for next year, you're saying?
No. That was for this year. That was to make this Dakar happen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's why he's in the cardboard box right now, because he sold everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So is it
You can make a calendar.
Is it too early to ask about next year? You know, like assuming that, you know, you don't get picked up by a team or something like that. You know, like you know, I mean, would you be hard charging for that again? You know, I mean, would you?
Yeah, I couldn't do it again. I have nothing left to sell. So I have. If I'm on my own again, I have kind of worked my resume into a good enough position to where I could probably figure it out. But I mean, this took half of the year of doing nothing but just stressing my eyeballs out, figuring out how I was even going to make it to the race. So I was fortunate enough that I was smart enough to put some contingencies in place. So when I came home, I didn't come home to nothing. You know, I'm able to kind of rebuild my life, and I'm not just stuck on my bicycle pedaling around. And I'm able to pay rent in the place that I live. So, I wasn't completely foolish enough to just sell everything and then not have anything to fall back on when I came home and I'm just stuck out on the streets. So I'm happy there, but like right now I'm borrowing my friend's dirt bike to ride. So, and it's really funny. I think it's funny. I'm doing a video shoot this year for the local, or this weekend for the local news station, and I have to borrow a motorcycle to do it. They're like, "Oh, you finished fifth in the biggest race ever.
Bring your bike."
He's like, "Oh, bring your bike. We're gonna shoot some footage." And I'm like, "I don't have one. I'm gonna have to borrow one from a friend." So.
Well, hey man, if that's not grassroots, I don't know what is, right?
Yeah, for real. But I have my hopes set high, so I'll be able to do a couple more races like Sonora. I do a handful of races in USA, the best in desert races like Vegas to Reno and the Silver State 300, which is just really good training because they're long days on the bike, and I think they're really fun. So I want to do Sonora Best in Desert, and then if the opportunity presents itself, I'd really want to go and do Silkway, just because I think that'd be insane to race through Kazakhstan and China and Russia.
There.
Yeah, you guys went.
Yeah, we're gonna go this year.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah. So I really want to go and do that. Hopefully things pan out and I can end up doing that. And then I'm crossing my fingers that I have another cool opportunity to drive some four-wheeled race cars in the near future too. So I think that would be really, really fun.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to have a sponsor that has a UTV, a racing UTV that I got to race a few months ago, and I won that, my very first ever pro race in a UTV, so it was pretty cool. So I really want to try and do a little bit more work in the four-wheel stuff, but I can't afford it, so I need someone to, like,
That's even more expensive.
yeah. If anyone needs a driver, I'm on board.
That's awesome. Awesome. Hey, we have a couple questions from the chat room, and then we gotta probably try to start to wrap up. It's been a little bit here already, but so Yamaha T-Dub Club says if you don't mind us asking, what is your day job?
So my day job, I'll just go through my history. I started out working at a swimming pool, and I was a lifeguard for 9.5 years. And then I worked double job with Fast Company Flex handlebars. I quit both of those jobs to try and do racing full time, and I quickly figured out that that's not sustainable. So I started working for just a local small CNC machine shop. I was working there for a little bit, but that machine shop actually just sold all of their Haas machines to Fast Company. And so indirectly, we were actually making parts for the Flex handlebars. But now, what I'm actually trying to do now is put a lot more effort into getting my commercial pilot's license for hot air balloons. So putting a little bit more effort into that and trying to do a proper, self-employed business as a hot air balloon pilot. It's kind of random.
He's going to be racing hot air balloons now, everybody. You heard it first here. He starts the first rally hot air balloon racing. I know that they're
it's
hot
a
air
real
balloon,
thing.
like events, but is there racing, like straight up racing?
Yeah.
Oh, that's too cool, man. I hadn't even heard about that before, but that's just
They even call it a hare and hound.
Really?
Yeah.
hot air and hound.
We should do a drum roll for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that one. That is. That's totally awesome. And it just goes to show, also, a lot of motorcyclists, we're not all just two wheelheads. We do a lot of other things in our lives. We have a lot of other different interests and passions too. And hell, if you're crazy about one thing, might as well be crazy about something else too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, so I take it that you don't have, like a manager or anything that helps you do all the fundraising or anything. I mean, it's just all you, right?
Yeah, and that's one thing that I'm actually running into a problem right now. My buddy realized that there could be a potential to sell a lot more T-shirts with, the publicity and stuff going on during Dakar. So I gave him my login information from my website, and he just opened up all of my stock. So I was actually out of stock of everything, and he's like, "Nah, we have unlimited everything. Order it all." So I sold. I'm not even joking. There's like 200 orders that I'm like sitting here trying to figure out all the stock that I need to, get ordered and all that kind of stuff. And people are emailing me like, "Hey, where's my T-shirts?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm trying to figure it out. I do everything on my own." Yeah. Essentially I figure out all of the my own sponsorships and fundraising and do everything, and kind of, I have a lot of people that help me out behind the scenes. There's my family and friends help me out with like my fundraisers. They ran, collecting money and things like that, but essentially putting it all together is on me.
Yeah. Well, this is one of these things where, and I wish it was different in the United States, which is, in Europe, you get all kinds of companies that help come out and support this stuff. You've got guys like Telefonica, and all these, what I mean? You got IT companies, and Xerox is on Formula Ones and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. HP, you know what I mean? And it's just like, I really wish we had some of that outside industry support for that.
Oreos. Ooh.
Or
Yeah.
Run.
Oreos.
Can of-
Stick 'em up. I got a banana. But you know what I mean? But you know, I mean, really, it's like, you know, and that was the thing that kind of frustrated me when I came back to America in 2008 after living and writing in China and stuff. It was just kind of like, yo, man, you know, these are amazing stories. People are doing amazing things. I mean, like, you know, mythological scales, what I always say. You know, like you couldn't even write a better story about how much people are really putting themselves out there in the depths of the valleys and the mountains that they have to move at the same time. But there was just no interest. You know what I mean? I was just like, you gotta be, you know what I mean? There's a real story there. Even if it's just for entertainment alone, there has to be some value. Either it's inspiring people or educating people or whatever it is. You know? I mean, it's just something that I wish was different in the U.S. in terms of how we saw, you know, kind of like our motorsports in general. And I really hope that we get a lot more, you know, kind of larger mainstream media that comes in and kind of recognizes that, because it would be very hard for that to happen unless they do it too, like it's done in the rest of the world. You know?
Yeah, it needs to be made like sexy. You know, make a movie, write a book, do something like get Brad Pitt to race something. Oh,
Wow, 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 wow. I don't have that plugged into my machine. Anyway, all right. Well, tell you what, it's been awesome. You know, I just want to give you guys a chance to give a shout out, you know, to peeps that have helped all three of you along the way, and then we'll do our last canned question. Skyler or Kyra, Justin, you guys want to go first?
We're doing
Shout-outs.
yeah.
Shout-outs.
I mean, Scott Bright, 100%. Scott Bright and Ed Cease, we wouldn't be sitting here if
without them.
if they didn't make a phone call to us. Scotty Broman, Scotty Bloom, and Mao. I mean,
they got us into the North American rally scene. Darren Skilton
Yep.
has really supported us and has put together a really great thing with Sonora Rally, and
Yep.
so we're really happy to be a part of that as well.
Skyler, that guy right there.
Skyler, I mean, we followed him to Peru, so if he wasn't racing, we would have nobody to take pictures of.
Yeah, I spent like a whole year taking pictures of that guy. I got more pictures of him than I do anyone else I know.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous. I got all kinds.
technically.
Camera hogs.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Polaris this year was really supportive of us and brought us to Dakar this year, so they're a huge help. And they're doing another big thing, actually, just to side plug their UTVs, but they're the first American factory team to go to Dakar. So that was a big step and hopefully might pave the way for other OEMs out here and American-based teams to come out to.
I think another person that doesn't in the rally space. I mean, Jimmy Lewis is a huge proponent of North American rally racing,
Yeah.
as is Quinn Cody. Quinn's with KTM
Yeah.
now.
Obviously, Johnny Campbell, because he's
JC.
really behind Ricky and his rally efforts.
But Quinn's pushing. Quinn organized in 2016 when the first year
Ricky went.
Yeah, Quinn organized like a North Americans in Dakar event out in the desert,
Mhm.
and it kind of introduced journalists and other racers to
Reading road books,
Yeah, road books
and
and-
trying to like test out their skills in a
That's
small
cool.
course and things
Yeah,
like
I think Quinn doesn't get as much credit as he deserves. He's been a huge proponent of
yeah.
rally here in North America and
Yeah.
in the world, getting
What?
Americans to Dakar.
Well, that's
There
cool.
is.
You know, we should shine some light on that then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
a ton of people who put more effort and passion into this passion than they get probably back, at least in a tangible sense.
Oh, yeah.
And all of them deserve credit, and all of them contribute to the growth, I think.
Yeah, well, that sounds like the motorcycle industry to me. we're all doing it largely, you know what I mean? Because we love it, and we love the people that we get to work with. Skyler, what you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, every single person that they have mentioned has been a part of my program and helped me out, even if it was indirectly. And this year specifically, I had, like you said, the motorcycle industry. I think it had a little bit to do with last year, Ricky winning, myself finishing in the top 10, and Andrew finishing. I mean, we had 3 Americans in the top 10, which is really, really cool. And so I think it got a lot more interest in people. And this year, it was either going to take one company to step up and give me $50,000 or a lot of people to come together and buy a t-shirt, which is exactly what happened. I mean, there's so many people that supported me, and I did something different this year. I had the SH squad. So instead of just doing, oh, hey, you know, I'm just going to do like a donation thing. If you do donate to my effort, I'll put your first and last name on my bike. And that was something that helped out a ton. A lot of people were really stoked about that to see, and I was fortunate enough that they actually featured that on television, so people got to see their name on my bike on the TV, which was really, really cool. And so, yeah, there's so many people that came together for that bought a t-shirt, that came to my fundraiser and bought raffle tickets or whatever. And then I had sponsors that have been with me since 2014 that have, you know, stepped up and helped me. And then I had 3 or 4 different companies out of Holland that step up to help me, like Boss Trucks. They helped me out a ton. And Bart Van de Velden with the Boss Dakar team, he did a lot of work for me this year to make sure I had the proper equipment and just, you know, making sure everything was done properly. Him and Leon and Bart and Nillison were such a huge, you know, component of how this Dakar went for me. And, you know, everyone, all the small shops that helped me, there's a tiny little coffee shop out of New York that stepped up and they made like a Skyler Howes roast and sold those bags for $10, and they gave me $5 out of all those bags. And I think they said their online sales had never been so high since all of like the motorcycle community coming together and buying coffee. And it was really, really cool to see how many people were just stoked to help out. And I wouldn't have been able to go without those people. And there's a lot of different small companies, you know, locally. There's a spa up in northern Utah, Summit Spa and Float, that helped me out. And just a handful, a Canadian company, a home building company that sponsored me, a shoe company, and just there's a bunch of like really small companies that just were stoked to have their logo on my bike that just helped out a ton. And without those people, it wouldn't have been possible. So thanks to all of them. Thanks to everyone that they mentioned for being a part of my program, to Garrett for getting me more or less started in all of it. And then he's going to kill me for even mentioning his name, but Mike Holcomb, he's the Lake Powell off-road guy. He has been such a huge, I consider his family my family. And he's got 2 daughters that I consider my little sisters. And I legitimately would not be racing without him. There's been so many really difficult times that I couldn't have been able to go racing if it wasn't for him. I would have stopped. I would have had to stop. There would have been no other option if it wasn't for him. And, you know, obviously my parents have stood behind me and dealt with all the stress of me just being in a foreign country, and they don't hear from me for like 2 days. And they're like, are you fine? I'm like, yeah, all good. I just almost ran into 3 camels and, you know, whatever. So there's so many people that have been a part of my program, and literally people from way back in the day that I remember that didn't have the money to help out and wrote me a check for $100 because they believed in me. And it's really, really satisfying for me to have a result like this. I still don't feel like I could ever repay them. But to have a result like this, to follow and chase my dream and to be able to accomplish something great makes me feel good and satisfied a little bit. Like I said, I part of me wants to repay them in some way. Yeah, I mean, thanks to Justin and Kyra for always taking pictures and bugging, you know, I bugged the crap out of them because Kyra's on me like, hey, I need quotes. And you're 3 days late. So thanks for dealing with me because I'm a scatterbrain constantly. Mm-hmm. So
well,
yeah.
What is that line from that Jim Carrey show? Behind every great man, there's a great woman rolling her eyes. We were just talking about the eye rolls. we were just talking about the eye rolls. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, last thing, guys. It has been absolutely wonderful, but any last word of advice for people getting into adventure riding and racing? Kyra and Justin, you guys have already answered this, so we'll just we'll just point this one over at Skyler. And what do you think, man? Last word of advice for people getting into adventure riding and racing.
Be passionate about it. Don't do it for the wrong reasons. Do it because you want to do it and you enjoy riding your motorcycle and you enjoy the adventure. And enjoy every aspect of it, the good, the bad. You can't have good without the bad because the bad makes the good that much sweeter. So enjoy every single part of it, and just have fun riding motorcycles or whatever you're driving or riding. Just have fun with it because that's what it was intended for. And do it with friends because that's even more fun.
Awesome. Well, tell you what, guys, it has been a really wonderful interview. It's gone over longer than we usually do, but you know what? I think it's been worth it. You guys have just been awesome. Skyler, big heartfelt man out of the risks of the experiences. You're right. It's not something anyone can understand unless they've been there, and I have a profound amount of respect for that. Yeah. Okay. Well, all right, guys. Hang on to the line. After the closing, we will do a quick closeout. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks again to Skyler, Kyra, and Justin for sharing their experiences with us tonight. Covering the event is a gigantic feather in any photographer's cap, and combined, they are a super passionate team who I'm happy to work with. Anyone who's part of the Dakar caravan has crazy stories to tell, whether you're racing or you're part of the support or media. The struggles for racers to qualify or generate enough money or funding to actually make it as a privateer is, as we've all kind of heard, it's truly amazing, and that's not even considering all the effort that you have to put forth to complete the race. So on any human scale, these are great stories of people being committed, overcoming, sacrifice, tragedy, triumph, camaraderie, and they deserve to be told the stories of life and death and Dakar. So everyone, please check out SkylerHowes.com and consider hitting the donate button. Mash the crap out of that donate button, please, to help ensure the dream goes on. Skyler has given up a lot to follow his passion, and every tank of gas helps, especially the more all of us pitch in. ADVMoto is also happy to throw in some gas money as well. So next show, please join us next month on ADVMoto Live, number 23 for Turtle Power, T-Dub Love. We're going to talk about Yamaha's beloved TW200, Rodney Wills of T-Dub's Club, who is in the chat room tonight, and Wes Matthias, a.k.a. T-Dub's Kid, who also has a channel over here on YouTube, will join us to talk about this iconic little dual sport that has captured so many large hearts. Your support means a lot and keeps the motorcycle world running. Please let us know what you'd like to see on the show in the comments below, and don't forget to mash that subscribe and follow. As a little bit of Dr. Seuss rhyme going on there. As always, visit adventuremotorcycle.com for more stories, news, reviews, videos, podcasts, and more. Until next time, everyone, from everyone here at ADVMoto, ride safe and have fun.